if it's a book, I mean, particularly with this book, I was writing it also during COVID, and I had a sense that this is for keeps, and I want to create one thing that I'm deeply proud of, other than my kids. And so the stakes kept increasing as well, because I think we had an increased sense of our own mortality. And so I realized that I had a degree of access to great investors that I'm not sure anybody else had been given. And so I wanted to make it count. So the stakes were high. So I don't know. I'm always torn. You know how people will say, don't make the great the enemy of the good and the like. And I just don't really believe that. I sort of feel like when I look at the super high performers that I write about, they're a little bit crazy. Like their intensity, their level of intensity and their desire for excellence is quite remarkable. And I remember one of the investors I wrote about, a guy called Paul Lanssis, he said to me at one point, he had read a couple of different books, one of Ben Graham's books, something like 50 times. And when I ran into him a year or so ago, I think he said to me, no, it's up to about 70 times now. And another book he'd read, only a little bit less than that. And he said to me, you don't get to be Roger Federer without playing a lot of tennis. And so I do think there has to be a kind of intensity. And so I think you can be very, very good at something by just being incredibly talented. But I think to be, at the absolute pinnacle, there's something, I think often you have to be a little bit defective, probably. There have to be parts of your personality that are a little bit unhealthy. I don't know. And I do sometimes write about people who I think have managed to be incredibly successful while being good role models of, having great families and the like. But I'm shocked at how many of the great investors I've written about have ended up divorced. I don't think it's a coincidence.